I think that's where a lot of creators get stuck is like, how do we show that vulnerability and authenticity and also deal with all of the other things that come with it?
And this is the part where I talk about in my book around detaching from our creations, right? Like how I've birthed 5 people and one lives in Nashville. And so it's like, how do I detach from like being his mother and let him as a creation go? And as we do that, we watch our children thrive. Our creations are the same, but the problem is that we hold them so tight. Like, but I work so hard on it and I love it so much. It's so amazing. I want
It feels like a piece of our soul that we're like burying out there.
It is. And so, but it's like this magic of like, can we detach it from us? Like, I've built this, I've created it, now let it go into the world. And if it lands for someone, awesome. And if it doesn't, awesome. What else can I create?
Welcome to the Confident Mompreneur podcast, where you can find solid advice along with warm guidance on motherhood, business, relationships, health, wellness, and everything you need to help add to your confidence and zest for life. And with interesting guests from all around the world, you'll hear real and relatable stories with impact and nuggets of wisdom to help you or the mompreneur meet the challenges of life with clarity and success. Now let's welcome your mompreneur host, Keira Brinton.
Okay. Well, welcome on this morning, Keira. I am so grateful that I get to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me here, Kyrie.
Yes, I am so excited to have her on as a guest today. For you guys that don't know her, she is an amazing author, mentor, all of the things. I had the opportunity to work with her over the last few months, and it has just been such an incredible experience. So I am so glad that I get to have you here and introduce you to my guest. So for those who don't know you, do you want to start us out by introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, your family, all the good things?
I would love to. Yes. So my name is Keira Brinton, and I'm a mother to 5. I'm a single mom. I love living in Idaho. We live in this beautiful space here in Idaho. I'm also a wild entrepreneur. So I love to build business so much. I love to create. And so I have built and founded a publishing house called Joa Publishing. It's a publishing house that only publishes books that are going to change the world. I have started something called the Mosaic. Mosaic is so fun. It's a business school for women entrepreneurs, and not like a normal business school. We go into the energetics of how women actually make abundance, because I feel as though women are extraordinary. They are meant to be entrepreneurs, but the codes inside of women have kept them stuck. So Mosaic is about the codes of success. And how do I help women make 100K, 500K? How do I get women to 1 million? And it all is the inner working. And so that's what we focus on in Mosaic. I also am a book medium. So that means I have this ability to sit with people and I can hear their books, and I take them on these really extraordinary adventures. We go somewhere exotic where we take them out of their environment, take them away from Zoom calls, kids, the dishes, and we actually channel their first draft of their book in 5 days. Yeah. It's like the funnest thing ever. I love it. I just love life. I love creation. I love bringing new to the world. I love writing books. My latest book is called Unleashed.
And it's amazing.
You like it? That's my favorite one.
I love it.
For sure. It was the unleashed version of me, right? So it's much better. So there you go. Those are some things.
No, it's so awesome. And you're so incredible in so many different ways. And just like the uniqueness of what you do and what you bring to the world is so amazing. And I think that just goes to show like that you are fully within yourself and you understand like the value that you bring to yourself and to others and to the world. And it's so incredible to get to watch, kind of from afar. And it's so interesting because I found you actually from one of your author adventures. I don't even remember exactly who it was. It might have been Robin, actually. It might have been Robin. But I watched you guys go through that process over 5 days, and I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Because I've been attempting to work on my book for like almost a year now. And like you said, there are just so many blocks that get in the way. And it seems like, especially if you have a really big, important story to tell, there seems to be even more of those things that come along and like block your path or make you question why you're doing it, or if you can even do it. And so to be able to like squeeze that down into a 5-day period is just incredible.
It is, because it's so true. Like, I'm supposed to write a chapter for this collaboration book with Rudy Maurer, and a chapter, like, that should take me an hour, and it's 5 weeks later, no chapter. Right? So there's just something about leaving our environment. There's something so about these adventures is we do a lot of sacred work. So we do a lot of prayer, we a lot of blessing in the body, a lot of meditation, a lot of breath work. So it's like almost if I were to take you and say, we're going to go run a marathon as your coach, I'm going to really take care of your body, your mind, your soul. I want to make sure you make it through this marathon without burning out. That's how it is with these authors. It's like I am there as their trainer, and I'm watching their bodies, and I'm watching when they hit burnout, and I'm watching when they hit blocks. And as soon as they hit burnout, all right, we're going to go play. As soon as they hit a block, we're going to channel. And so there's all the things that normally stop an author gets deleted out. And that's why we're able to create so fast, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it's so fun because like you said, you guys make it an adventure while you're there too, because it's not just a stop and work for 5 days straight. You guys are doing other things and having fun while you're there too. So I'm like, the time that you guys do it in is even squeezed down to it's incredible.
It is. I know. I now take 3 authors at once.
Mhm.
And I had 3 men last week in Florida. We went to Rosemary Beach. And those first 3 days, I would say we only wrote half the time. So like the first 3 days are a little bit like getting people into the sacred work, taking care of their nervous systems, because they all just left high intense jobs and lives. And you can't just tip right into flow state. So it's literally like the first 3 days are me just like getting them there. And then the last 2 days, we wrote like 12 hours a day, but they were like in it because we had done the work to prepare.
Yeah, that is so cool. So I've heard a little bit of your story, but like, how did you even get into all of this? Where did it come from? Because obviously you speak about like, it's such a spiritual and like whole body experience when you bring people on these things. Like, how did you even learn that you could do this? Like, what was the process like that kind of led you here? Because I can tell you myself that your story resonated with me very hard. Like, I see so much of myself in your story and how it's gone, being a single parent and, trying to step into that role and figure out life outside of like religion and marriage and all of the things.
Like, where do we even, what
Yeah.
story do I tell? There's so many.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the one that probably hits a chord with you because you have a similar past is like how I got into this work really was I was a massage therapist since I was 18 to 38. I'm 20 years. That was my profession. I'd always been an entrepreneur though. So I would always, I was also like randomly a photographer for a decade. I did energy healing for 5 years. Like there was always a lot of entrepreneurial things happening. But in 2017, I had a really dark time, and so dark that I actually almost took my life. And in that moment, when I chose to live, is because I felt God show up and say I had work to do. And that message, like, I just knew it. Like, there is something I'm here to do. And so I made a commitment that whatever God asked me to do, I would do. And that changed the trajectory of my life. That commitment meant that everything I was inspired to do, I did. And that started with my first book. which was called The Hidden Gifts Within the Trauma of Sexual Abuse. That was my trauma as a child. And God asked me to write a book on this. And I was like, I haven't even been in college. Like, why would I write a book? Like, that's so crazy. But I did. And as I was writing it, God said, start a publishing house. And then as I started like I didn't even publish for 2 years. So like I started the publishing house and then God said, start coaching. So it was just like one thing after the other. But I mean, this was 2017. So this is a while ago, right?
Mhm.
And I just remember thinking, why did God inspire me to start a publishing house? Why was I inspired to write a book? Like, I don't know, 50 people read it, you know? And the publishing house, like, I didn't publish anyone for 2 years. So just sat there. So it felt like the most ridiculous thing that I'd ever been inspired to do. And here now in 2024, I mean, we have authors being published all the time. We've published so many books. And so for me, it's one of those reminders that when we're inspired to do something, the result isn't always the next day.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I followed the inspiration, even though it made no sense. So grateful I didn't give up on it, even though it made no sense and it wasn't working. Because now I get to bring people's words to the world. And it's a holy work to me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think about, just some of the dark periods that I've gone through and how difficult it can be to like find your way out of that. And just the resilience within you to find your way out of it, but then also create, all of this beautiful work from it too. I mean, even your first book, 50 people were touched by that. And it doesn't sound like a lot when you're like, publishing a book, but if you think about having 50 individuals in a room with you, that's a lot of lives touched. And so it just goes to show that even if you're not like number one on the New York Times list, we can have an impact through the words and stories that we share.
Agreed. And I know I've had many people say that book healed them, because I was like, I just went, like, I didn't go deep into my trauma. I went deep into the effects, right? And like, I feel like that helped people be seen. And that book was the beginning of me understanding how to channel. So me receiving that book, we only had one computer at the time. And my husband, I was married at the time, he would take his computer to work every morning at 7 a.m. So I had to get up early to write this book because it was the only time I had with this computer. And I feel like something happened when I wrote that book. Like I became someone different because I wrote that book. And I feel like that's what happens to every author I publish, is that the writing of the book transforms you into your future self. It's such a beautiful process.
Well, and I think that goes like in your new book, Unleashed. That's like the entire premise of the book, right? Is that we become new people through the creations that we put out there. And that's the actual power, is like the person that we become through our creations, not the creations themselves.
Yes. Oh, I love that you got that. That's amazing. Yes.
I got it. No, it was such a beautiful book. And, especially for someone that I think is kind of like you, where I've like, started a lot of things, done a lot of things, but maybe it hasn't like turned into as big of a thing as I wanted it to, or it didn't happen right away or whatever. It can feel definitely discouraging when you're in those moments if you don't see that the process itself is what's the good part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The process is the alchemy.
Yeah.
So it's like this. When we have a big goal or a big creation that wants to come through, the process to reach it changes us. And it turns us into who we are here to be. So if we never reach our big, like we never even try to get the big goal, or we never try to achieve this creation, we end up just staying in the same shape. But it's not always like butterflies and rainbows. Like the process to getting there is actually painful because you're breaking your shape over and over and over to become the new shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so cool to see, just like in your story, as you were kind of explaining how, just starting that book then led to all of these new and different things along the line. Because I feel like sometimes we get so stuck on the goal itself that we can't see that it's leading to somewhere even greater. And so we reach that kind of like high, and then we're like, and now what?
Yeah. 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 And that is like the piece that I think there's a huge part of my life about celebration, right? Like you've been on my calls, we celebrate a lot. I celebrate a lot. And I have like very specific things like, okay, when I hit this goal, this is what I'm going to do. And that way I can tell my body that I reached it. Because if we're just always trying to hit goals and we're never acknowledging, witnessing, or celebrating, then our body's like, what's the difference between hitting a goal and doing laundry?
Yeah, what's the point in this?
Like what? There's no difference. Like both you just do. It's like we have to witness. And I think that's one of the struggles for women in business is that we are so used to doing a million things and we're so used to not getting acknowledged for it. So when we hit a goal, we don't even know how to acknowledge ourselves. But that's the space of success. Like when we can taste it, feel it, know it, be like, I did it. Oh my gosh, I did it. And like feel it in our bodies. Then our body's like, oh, well, look, there's like a dopamine hit that comes when I hit a goal. Well, then let's create again. And then we're on fire.
Yeah. It's so cool. And I love like seeing women when they realize that and can like step into it. Cause it just like there's this whole energy that comes into you. And it's great because especially like in goal set or in group settings, kind of like what you built with Mosaic, like that energy feeds off of each other. So one person like gets a win and then it starts to like bubble out into the rest.
Yeah. And it also shows up like, so today was the writing mastermind and I had a bunch of women read their writing and I watch that when they are heard, when they are witnessed, it's just the same energy. I mean, it's just like an explosion of magic, like, oh, to be heard, to be seen, to be witnessed in my deepest vulnerable magic. Like, it's just contagious and it builds everyone up all at the same time.
Yeah. But it's also terrifying, like to step into that like really authentic, vulnerable state and like put it out there in its entirety for other people to see and to witness. And I think that's where a lot of creators get stuck is like, how do we show that vulnerability and authenticity and also deal with all of the other things that come with it?
And this is the part where I talk about in my book around detaching from our creations, right? Like how I've birthed 5 people and one lives in Nashville. And so it's like, okay, how do I detach from being like his caretaker still? How do I detach from like being his mother and let him as a creation go? And as we do that, we watch our children thrive. Our creations are the same, but the problem is that we hold them so tight. But I work so hard on it and I love it so much. It's so amazing.
It feels like a piece of our soul that we're like burying out there.
It is. And so, but it's like this magic of like, can we detach it from us? Like I've built this, I've created it, now let it go into the world. And if it lands for someone, awesome. And if it doesn't, awesome. What else can I create? The thing that happens is we get into this lack mindset of like, oh, but I spent like 12 hours or 48 hours or 7 months creating this. And if it doesn't land, then I have to create again. And I say, I want the energy to be like, oh my gosh, I get to create again. I get to create again and never, ever be done creating. And one thing's going to land. I've launched so many things that didn't work. I can't even tell you. More than I can even count.
Yeah.
So it's like the practices, be in creation always, give to humanity always, something is going to land.
Eventually you'll get it. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like trying and trying and trying. I think we're so often afraid of failure that we won't even put anything out there. But really, like, how many failures, quote unquote failures, have you had that have then turned into something else beautiful? Like even your publishing house. You said that didn't have anything for 2 years. And now how many books are you guys publishing all the time? And it's books that really have a purpose and a meaning behind them. And so maybe you were just waiting for that to kind of fall into place in order to actually have the creation that needed to come from it.
100%. And I mean, when I first started, I was the publisher. So I was the project manager, and I was taking it to the editor and the formatter and the book cover. And I was the one doing the things, which is not scalable, nor my magic. Like, I am not a project manager whatsoever. Right. And so there's like,
You're
I
like
had to
keywords, ADHD, too many
Yeah.
things going on at all.
do not put me in charge of your projects. Okay. Then it's like, okay, that's why I had to start slow. I had to learn how to do it first. Then I built systems that made it go smoother. Then I was given better people, better editors, better formatters, better book covers, right? Like all these better things started to show up, which then allowed it to scale. So it's almost like it has to be right opportunity, right environment, right team for all. It's like the 777 on the slots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a while to get that dialed in. I mean, I've had to fire my whole team. I've had like, this is not easy. These aren't like, I think something that I want to bring two things to the table, which is business should be pleasure. The end. Women should find pleasure in business, pleasure in creation, pleasure in building and serving humanity. There's so much pleasure in it, and in making money. And women also have to own that they know exactly what needs to be done, that they are like the energy of the queen, which means that when they have to make hard decisions, they can do it despite the ramifications, because that is actually who we are. The world has just told us differently.
Well, yeah. And you have been talking about that a lot recently, and you kind of brought it up in the beginning of this, is all of those like codes and things that have been built into us over time, through just societal pressures and who we're told we should be or that we are or whatever, and kind of deconstructing all of our thoughts and values around that so that we can come to our most authentic self. So where did that come from, and how have you done it in yourself?
So interesting enough, this has just been my process, right? Like it's interesting. It's like whenever it's your zone of genius, you can't see it. Like,
Until somebody else tells you.
Yeah, you're like, this is just what I do, right? But I started to see a pattern that like when I was coaching a lot of women, there was like these cyclical patterns. And the cyclical patterns looked like they would have a big sell and then they wouldn't sell anything for a long, long time. Or they would launch programs and only 2 people would buy and then they would quit. Or they would create and create and create and never launch. These were like the 3 main cycles. And I was like, how have I been able to move through these cycles? Like, how have I not gotten stuck? Because it doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, 17, 18, 19, 20, like for 4 years, I created digital courses and masterminds and programs and like maybe made $6,000 every few months, right? Like it's not like I figured it out early on, but I never quit. And it was like, why? Why is that, right? It doesn't make any sense. So I actually was with my shaman a few weeks ago. I went into this deep healing session. And that's when I received my most inspired, I would say, visions. And this is when I saw this vision. And I was shown that there are codes of success for women in business, and that there was a code that I just figured out inside of me, and it's actually finding pleasure in business.
Mm-hmm.
That it's so pleasurable to create business for me that abundance follows my feet. And it didn't happen right at first, but the pleasure kept me going. So like whenever I launched something and no one bought, like I had so much fun building that I didn't care if anyone bought.
Right.
There was just so much joy in the creation, in the building, that like it deleted the shame. And I think that's part of like really what I'm helping women do is let's clear out the shame, because most women build, and if it doesn't turn out the way they want, they go straight into shame. I didn't do it right. No one likes my stuff. Who am I to do this? And they go into these shame cycles that money doesn't live at that frequency. So no matter how many times they create, they're never going to make money because it actually doesn't live there.
No, that's so good. And you've said that to me several times, because I definitely get stuck in those like shame cycles. And it's definitely hard to realize, you'll never find abundance in the same vein as shame. But it's so, I think, built into us at this point that it can be really hard to release that and those feelings, but also recognizing that like we have the power. And I think we forget that sometimes.
Me too. And it's not to say that I don't hit shame, but I know when it shows up, I have to change my state. So I don't sit in shame. So imagine if like some smoke was coming by and you just took a little bit of a whiff and and you get out of the space where the smoke is. We're always going to smell shame. It's always going to come in, but we get to choose if we sit in it and breathe it or we move. And so for me, man, I hit shame recently over a decision I made in business, and oh gosh, it's like, how do I keep making these kind of mistakes? Well, hello, this is entrepreneurship. We all make mistakes every day, but the shame came in. So it's like, I did like 45 minutes of breath work on my red light therapy mat. I went into my sauna for 20 minutes, like anything that you can use to shift your state. Then you move out of shame and it doesn't calcify inside of you. But if you sit in it, it actually calcifies and then it becomes a part of your energy, and money doesn't live in that.
Yep. No, I definitely have noticed that I do so much better in just like everything if I'm moving out of my head and into my body, because like you said earlier, we already have the answers inside of us. But I think we, especially as women, tend to overthink every single thing and bring in that shame and just like get stuck in those cycles. And one of the things that I've actually found is most helpful for me is getting outside and getting exercise, because I'm like so out of my head and into my body that I actually do my best thinking in those spaces.
Same. Agreed. Moving the body is such a powerful form to get out of the head. And really, like if we think about it, like if shame is like an energy, if you're moving your body, you're going to get it out. That's why breath work is so powerful, because we move, get it out. And so it's like, how can we get out faster? It's going to come in. It's part of being human. But how do we not sit in it? And how do we go to a vibrational frequency that matches abundance? And it's not because like money is the greatest thing in the world, but I'll tell you though, that if you want to go make a difference in the world, money is how you do it.
Right.
Money is the currency of how you impact people's lives. And it's also the currency of literally owning your power.
Yeah.
Like letting women like really accept and receive that they can actually make abundance.
Yeah. Well, and it's cool because when we get women together and we all like allow those powers to come about, like just think about you. You've made money, obviously, doing all of the things that you do, but also the impact that's been created through all of that too. It's like it all comes together in the right way at the right time, as it's supposed to, if we allow it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think back to the days when I didn't make money, and I would say I was helping maybe 2 people at a time. And now, I mean, we have 33 women in Mosaic, Got multiple authors all the time that I'm helping write their books. I've a lot of people taking my courses, watching my YouTube videos. Like, the more money you make, the bigger the reach you have.
Yeah.
Then I get to take that money and I get to run Facebook ads. So I can go out and find people all over the world who need my work. But if I don't have money to run Facebook ads, it limits how many people I can serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really good because I do think there's a lot of shame for women, especially around money. And we feel like we're not worthy of it, or, you know, that we don't need it, but, you know, we do. It's sometimes a necessary evil to provide better good things out there. I was gonna say something.
Let me say this there. So even that right there. So I think that a lot of women are shamed around money, right? Shamed for spending money, shamed for not making money. There's a lot of shame for women around money. And so we start to say, oh, this is like an evil that I have to just get by. What I want to help shift women into is like, this is like orgasmic energy.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most magical energy ever. And you're so lucky to be able to receive this energy. And when we can fully embody the, like, we could breathe in and breathe out and receive abundance of money at any time, at any place, that we can call in $10,000 if we need to out of nowhere. Like, when we own that, when we own our ability to really manifest money, we become different people. And it's not evil. Instead, it's actually the best gift in the world.
Yeah. You have to share your story now about your money for the island the other day, because you shared this on one of our calls. And I was like, but this is such a good, like, proof of what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I went to this, I felt really inspired that I was supposed to go to this private island in June, just a few months ago, for a silent retreat. And I thought about it because I had just been to BVI, the British Virgin Islands, like in March. I was like, why am I going back to BVI? It's been like 3 months, you know, like, who gets to go to BVI twice? Like, that was like in my thought, you know, like, I'm lucky I did it once, but like, who gets to go twice in 3 months? That seems like very like out of control. But it was very clear I was supposed to go. So I bought my ticket, I went, and when I got there, I heard the message I was to rent the island. And I said, sure, as I always do, right? Now, that doesn't mean it was easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It was $133,000 that had to be paid up in like less than 6 weeks. And that was seriously an intense experience for me, like I've never experienced before. And it's not that I hadn't made I'd made $100,000 in a week before. So it was like, it wasn't that. It was the pressure that I had to make that much money.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like a really interesting dynamic. Like, if I don't have to make money, I can make all the money all the time. But someone pressures me and it just changes the dynamics, right? So I had gotten the whole island paid for. I thought I was completely paid for. I'm sitting in the airport between my travel always. And I'm like in between, I don't even know where I was. I think I was like Connecticut. And I was sitting there and I got the message from the island saying, hey, you actually owe $10,000 in like fees. And I was like, what? I did it. You know, like, what? And instead of getting all bummed and pissed and be like, oh, another 10,000, I was like, all right, how do I make $10,000 in the next 30 minutes? And then I remembered that someone had agreed to me coming to do an author adventure with them. And they were like, I'll just pay you when you're here. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to say I need $10,000 before I arrive. And so I sent them a message. I said, hey, as I'm coming, I need to have $10,000 wired over in the next hour just to secure my spot. Within 30 minutes, $10,000 hit my bank account and I was able to send it over. And it was like the most extraordinary, and sure, now let's get a coffee, right? Like, can that be the energy that we play in, where instead of this, this panic and this stress that shows up, and I know it because I've had it so many times in my life. How do we instead go, how do I make money right now? And with that question, it's very interesting. But if you were to ask that question, how do I make $10,000 today? That question becomes a magnet to new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I say, how do I make $50,000 this week? Show me ideas. Boom, 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 boom. All these ideas. Text this person, text this person. And guess what? Most of the time, the people I'm like, hey, I got this idea. I got this thing. They're never the answer, but my actions created results. And then it shows up somewhere else.
Yeah.
So exciting.
That's one of my favorite quotes from you that I've heard over and over again is like, we have to be able to listen to the intuition, but then we also have to follow through with action in order to create, the actual thing that we're trying to create. I think it's cool because you talk so much about like being so in tune with yourself that you can listen to those inspirations, but you also talk about taking immediate action. And sometimes like you also bring up like the inspiration only comes when we ask for it, and like really getting intentional in the way that we're asking those things. And like there was this one time we were on a training and you said, okay, your homework is to create an ask before you go to bed tonight. Well, I did, but then I like woke up at like 2:00 in the morning and it was there. But then I was like awake and couldn't go back to sleep for the rest of the night. And you were like, okay, well, you have to get more intentional with the way that you ask to make sure that you can actually sleep. And then it comes when you want it to come.
It's like a disclaimer I have to say now where I say, give me this answer when I wake up. And then you can sleep the whole night. Otherwise, like I get people all the time, oh, I had nightmares all night. I've got visions. I didn't get any sleep. I'm like, well, because your subconscious actually doesn't know you need sleep. So it's just going to give you the answer because you asked for it. So you have to tell the subconscious, I need this answer right when I wake up in the morning. And then it will come then.
Yeah. It was a problem. I was like, this is great, but also
It's true. It actually happens to a lot of people. So I think that this is the place where I want people to lean into. There's like a line in the sand. And on this side, we believe in the fears and the doubts and the lack, right? And like the voices that come in that say, I mean, it's like the same for everyone. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Oh my gosh, like everything's going to fall apart. Why did I start to do this? Why did I think I could ever create this business? Why did I ever think I could write a book? Who am I to do this? I should just go back to who I once was. Mm-hmm. Like I used to always say, I should just go back to being a massage therapist. Like I knew how to do that. But I could like impact 4 people a month. That's all. Yeah. We're on this side. Instead of like, if you're short on money, the question is, how do I create money right now? What are the ideas, the inspirations, the actions that I can take right here today that are going to bring me money? And then do it not attached to those things bringing you money. Do it knowing that you are giving, like if you were to imagine, if I were to say to you, will you cook me dinner? And you come to my house and there's no ingredients. How could you cook dinner? So then we ask God, can you bring me money? But if we're not taking action, there's no ingredients for God to work a miracle. Yeah. So if we take action on everything we're told, all of a sudden now there's ingredients. God can produce a miracle. It doesn't mean it's going to come from what we did. We just gave God some material. Mm-hmm. Now we got something to work with, right? Yeah. But the problem is that most women get stuck in avoidance. They avoid, and then the avoidance gets them locked into shackles. And it's like a prison. Because we avoid, because if we did something wrong, we shame ourselves. So we think, well, okay, if I just don't look over here, then I don't have to know if I did something wrong. And then I don't have to shame myself. But avoidance will always create lack.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's so true. I definitely have one of those personalities where like I like to avoid things, but I found that avoidance, like it always comes around eventually to bite you in the butt anyway, so you might as well deal with it when you need to deal with it.
Yeah. I really think a lot of us, I mean, me included, that's why I know this. I don't preach this because I like read a book. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've lived this, you know, I have lived this. I still, avoidance is the thing I have to deal with the most because it just seems so much easier to just be like, well, if I just don't look, then maybe it'll be something different. Right. But that energy is actually what holds us back. And that's what holds us back from building the business of our dreams because we have to look at all the problems that are happening.
Yeah.
We have to look at all the holes. This is why we don't write books because we avoid it. We avoid it because we have to actually deal with shit when we're writing a book.
Oh yeah. I've definitely been seeing that a lot lately. I had to take a break for my mental health because I realized that I had been avoiding a lot of the things and then like was trying to write about it and all of a sudden all of this came up and it was a major thing. And so just being able to work through things like a little bit at a time instead of avoiding until all of a sudden it's drowning you is a much better way to do it.
And that's actually why I take people on adventures because it's extremely triggering if you have to write about something hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be in a space where someone's there who can do some healing work with you. You know, I bring my drum. I drum my authors all day long. I have my sound bowls. I'm sounding their bodies. We're doing breath work. To write a book that is vulnerable, raw, that is inspired, it's going to bring up old wounds. And to do it by yourself is a tricky thing.
Yeah, for
Very
sure.
tricky.
I was going to say too, I am like so in awe of all of your authors and just the way that you've decided to like bring them on and like the stories that are being shared, even from some of the women that I've gotten to know over the last couple months. But I love, you know, your publishing house and really what it stands for. But I did wonder, like, how do you pick and choose what authors and stories you're going to share? And I think it's interesting because, like, a lot of your books even don't follow like a traditional formatting style for publishers, which I think is cool because it's very much more the way that I think and read about things. And so as I'm writing mine, I'm finding that I kind of am in the same similar style that a traditional like publishing house would not probably like.
I just don't like rules.
Yeah.
So I don't follow rules. And for me, we live in a different time, which means that most people are ADD. Most people cannot focus. And so I format every book that we have. We want it to look different. Every book is going to have its own formatting. We have not published one book that looks the same inside, which I don't know if there's a publishing house out there who does that because most publishing houses have their templates. They plop the book in and bada bing, bada boom. Mine are all over the place. We got bold words and italicized words and boxes and QR codes and graphics. And it's like, how do I make books feel like apps? If I can make a book feel like an app, someone's going to stay in it.
Mm,
You make it boring as hell, everyone's going to close the damn book.
yeah.
So that's my thought process is like, how do we make them feel like apps? Because that's what everyone's used to.
Mm-hmm.
And also, how do we make it match the personality of the author? Right? It's really a powerful experience to do that. And I actually don't publish anybody anymore unless you've worked with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very, very picky about who comes through my publishing house. And it's not that like somebody who doesn't publish with me doesn't have a good book, but there's a vibrational frequency in the books that we channel that all across the board, it creates a stream that it's magical. The books that we put out, And you know it, like, because they're different, because we channel them. So they are like divine, pure source, light, truth, knowledge. They're holy. And so I call my angels in and I ask them to bring me authors. That's how I find them.
That's awesome and amazing that you like have now created, like you said, these systems that allow you to bring in the people with the energies and the messages that are supposed to be there. But it's taken, like you said, a lot of time and a lot of personal work to be able to do that. So you brought up like you're doing a million different things all the time. You're traveling all the time. You have 5 kids that you're also trying to raise while doing all of this. Like, what are some of your top keys for like running an intentional business, but also living an intentional life where you can find that joy?
Yeah. I mean, it starts every morning. Non-negotiable an hour every morning. Today I had 3. I had 3 hours this morning. I got up at 4:30. I didn't finish until 7:45 because I just came off of 3 weeks of travel. I helped 4 people write books in the last 2 weeks. My book was on the Billboard NASDAQ screen in New York Times Square yesterday. So my nervous system was messy this morning. And I will not lead with a nervous system that felt like it did this morning. So my days begin with prayer, breath work, red light therapy. Today I threw in sauna. I threw in like all the tools, everything I could
Everything
get.
you threw at it.
Just the whole damn menu. And I feel amazing. So there's like something about starting your day off with a practice that lights you up. Because I do have some ADHD, my practice isn't always the same. I have like a menu of things that I can choose from. Every morning, though, is prayer. Every morning is gratitude. Every morning is breath work. Those are my staples. And then today I pulled cards and I read a little bit of a book. Right? You just pick what do I want to do that feels delicious? Instead of I have a morning routine. Bleh. That's the worst energy ever. No wonder no one's getting up to do it. Right? That's horrible. There's just another damn to-do thing. Instead, I'm what feels so good? You can't wait. Right? You can't wait to do this thing every morning. If you start out like that, everything falls into place. Your day just moves with ease, but I also don't just do it in the morning. So I think this is important. Like today, I was feeling a little burnt out. I got up at 4:30. I had a 30-minute break. I took a 20-minute nap. And then I did a 5-minute breath work session. Came right back to life. Now I've got my full energy. My kids are home today. I was able to go feed them lunch. I was able to spend some time with them. Then I came in, we're doing this. Got 3 more calls. I'll do breath work again on my red light therapy mat before I go out and be a mom. That's really important to me. I'm not going to go out and be a mom if I'm feeling hot in my nervous system.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's so cool that you've figured out what works for you and then created those systems in place that can be flexible around your life, but are also things that can kind of move you and transition you into whatever you're going into next. Because I think that is a really hard thing is women and moms trying to do all the thing is feeling like we have to be all of the things all at once all the time, and sometimes just being able to separate it, even with that 5 to 10 minutes of this is my transitional period. I'm moving from business woman into mom mode, because it can be really hard to just bounce straight from one to the other.
Yeah, it burns you out. So I even do my clothes, I dress really beautiful when I'm working. As soon as I am done working, I put on sweats and I get on my red light therapy, I breathe, and then I exit out. Like boss woman stays here, and then mom walks through that door, and I get to be a mom. And that really helps. The outer clothes does something for me. It shifts my energy.
You always have that really comfy, like cozy hoodie on. I always see you wearing it.
Maybe never lose that. Like this is a solid piece of my life. I like have tried to buy like fancy sweats, you know? People are like, you should maybe dress like fancy when you're on these adventures. I'm like, no, just straight like Walmart Ross sweats. Like this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it feels so good. But then like, you know, today I have my Saks Fifth Avenue shirt on. So it's like I can be both
Yeah.
Saks Fifth Avenue and Walmart Ross sweats.
Love it.
Let us be both.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
No, I love it. I think that's so great. Well, you have a lot of things going on right now, some cool changes that have just come about. Tell us where we can find you, what you've got going on, how we can work with you, all the things.
Thank you. So I have a 3-day live event coming up second week of October. It's called the Success Codes for Women Entrepreneurs. Everyone needs to come to it. It is going to be
all the things we were just talking about.
Everything we are doing. But these events, and you've been to them, they're not boring and they're not like copy and paste. I've never done one event that was ever the same. And so they are free. Actually, just kidding. This one's not free. Isn't that interesting?
Most of them are free.
Most of them are free. But this one, because this is the Success Codes for Business, I'm charging $97 a ticket, which is actually just still very, very affordable. But I'm doing that because I want women to invest in themselves to be able to get this experience. It's going to be phenomenal. But I have a bunch of free content. I have 700 videos on YouTube. I post things on Instagram all the time. Keira Brinton's my handle. You can check out Mosaic. We have it on Instagram. You can check out Joa Publishing on Instagram. You can also look at my website, KeiraBrinton.com. It'll lead you to everything. Next year, I'm doing 6 to 7 author adventures. That's it. So they're already filling up. If somebody wants an author adventure, I don't know. I love doing them. They're my favorite thing, but I also don't know, like, what's the longevity of me doing these for years and years and years? I'm not sure. So I say, people want to do it. Let's go next year. All right. Because it is a life-changing experience that will literally change every part of your whole existence. The transformation is amazing. That I do have a podcast, but it's not active yet. I mean, it's 4 years old, but it's been 4 months since I've posted. But you can listen to 4 years of content.
Yeah. No, she's everywhere all the time doing all of the things. I love following you on Instagram because it's like a mix of both the professional you and like you in a hoodie in the car talking version. And I love just like the authenticity that you kind of get to see there, you know, versus like on traditional trainings or things like that. So it's kind of fun to see, but they have some amazing authors that have recently had books coming out, have some new books coming out. Some of my friends that I'm really excited to hear their stories. You guys do the Mosaic like network books where each person gets a chapter. So if you want to hear a little bit of different stories, there's all of those going on. So definitely go check her out. Join her for the trainings, the author adventures, all of the things. I've loved working with her and couldn't recommend her more. So please go check her out everywhere. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kyrie. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mompreneur podcast. And if you like this episode as much as we did, give us a follow so we can invite you back every Wednesday. And of course, share it on all your socials. Being a confident mompreneur means uncovering your strengths and struggles so you can dive in and learn how your next steps could be your greatest.